just about everybody's favorite topic, and we're going to give it a long, hard, in-depth examination. I'll be using the methodology of complexity theory to disentangle the various strands of genetics and culture that form our experience of sexuality. But first, a disclaimer. This will be a completely free, open examination, so if you're offended or disturbed by frank words or images, this would be a good time to bust a move. And also, please, no public nudity or sex acts while we're here in the library, no matter how stimulating the experience. Thanks. So to understand human nature, it's necessary to understand human sexuality. But our sexuality is composed of multiple layers. Biological instincts provide the underlying form and function, but cultural expectations add a layer of their own. To really understand human nature and human sexuality, it's necessary to know more than our natural biology. We'll take a look at a huge variety of ways culture has channeled sexuality. People are taught to believe that the particular customs of their tribe or culture are the natural and best ones. But I'm going to ask you to put aside your preconceptions today and look at this topic with fresh eyes. Objectivity is the watchword. That's the approach we'll be taking today. Objective, scientific, unbiased, and uninhibited. And a shout out to our fearless videographer, Don Cheney, manning the candid camera, who will be documenting the proceedings. So we're going to look at 4 different domains of evolution today. First, the evolution of our sexual hardware. This is a biological process under the direct control of our genes. Next, we'll be looking at sociobiological evolution, the origin of our sexual instincts and drives. Also a part of evolutionary biology, but under looser genetic control. Third, the evolution of cultural norms. Culture teaches us how to be human, and how humans do sex. And it's here that we see just how malleable human nature really is, and how capriciously arbitrary cultural evolution can be. Because culture has developed an amazingly diverse repertoire of systems to regulate sexual behavior. Most of them, it must be said, are shockingly bad at balancing human needs and social necessity. They're responsible for much of the unhappiness in the world. Finally, we'll take all this information about how we got here and use it to get an idea of where we're going, future sex. Because the invention of reliable birth control and STD prevention has completely rewritten the sexual playbook and has launched this latest sexual revolution. We're in the middle of that revolution right now, and it's causing a lot of stress and confusion. But our species has gone through such transitions before, and this one is actually pretty easy compared to what the human race has dealt with in the past. I look forward to your feedback. Please feel free to ask questions anytime, so let's get busy. There's a basic asymmetry between the optimal reproductive strategies for males and females. It's purely based on the differential level of parental investment from the mother and the father. Females invest a lot more energy into producing offspring than males do. We see a sperm cell here, knocking at the door of an ovum cell. That ovum weighs 85,000 times as much as the sperm. But the size difference doesn't begin to explain the differential investment. The sperm cell provides one thing only: half the genetic material of a new human, 23 chromosomes. The female provides everything else, and that is a huge load on her. Every gram of matter used to build the infant child is filtered through the mother's body, not just during pregnancy, but for many months during breastfeeding. And that's why females are choosy about mating. It's a huge and risky investment. Males, however, can benefit from a more indiscriminate mass market insemination strategy. You know, women have been known to complain that men are only interested in one thing, and men will sometimes express some exasperation at how well women can play hard to get. From a biological perspective, both those strategies make perfect sense. The anthropologist Bronislaw Malinowski liked to tell about his fieldwork in the Trobriand Islands, Melanesia, where folk are enculturated to believe that sex is unconnected to conception, a friction-reducing fiction. One of Malinowski's local informants proved it by citing the well-known fact that there were several women on the island so ugly that no man would fuck them with a 10-foot pole. Yet each had borne several children, thus proving sex is unnecessary for procreation. So ladies, the fact that men are total horn dogs does have some beneficial consequences. If men weren't so horny, some sisters would never get laid. And
What
guys,
about beer?
the fact that ladies wouldn't feel like ladies, if they didn't feel hard to get, if they didn't play hard to get, that can be rough at times, but times are changing. Sexual ethics are constantly evolving, and the realities of modern culture have changed the adaptive landscape, and morals adapt with them, though with a couple generation lag time. So let's take a look at the hardware that biology has given us, and then we'll see how we use that equipment. So here we see the female human reproductive system and the associated neighborhood, along with a well-known polemic from the early church. Man is born between urinal and sewer. You can see what the church fathers were talking about. The human birth canal here really is sandwiched between the urethra and the rectum. But what this comment really shows is how little these religious authorities truly understood about the evolution of human sexuality. We'll see why they're such haters later on. So here we have the uterus. This is where we all get our start. Here we see the vagina, the antechamber of the uterus, and between them is the cervix, which is the gatekeeper to the womb. It's normally tightly closed and protects the uterus from contamination. Actually, the only visitors who are welcome to the womb are sperm cells. And as we'll see later, the cervix plays a key role in determining which sperm cells are emitted. With all due respect to St. Augustine and St. Barnard, the poor fools don't know what they're talking about. Mammalian genitalia are actually very well adapted for good, clean fun. In fact, if you believe in God, a supreme creator and intelligent designer, then you should thank him for making human beings so highly sexualized and with such delightful equipment. Or if you believe that life evolved through natural selection, then we just got lucky. Sex could have been a lot dirtier. The mammalian genitalia are a huge improvement over previous models. The other vertebrate orders, fish, amphibians, reptiles, and birds, have a much more basic layout. For them, it's all about the cloaca. It's a one-vent-serves-all kind of opening. It's where urine, feces, and sex organs all come together. When male reptiles get an erection, job one is boning their way out of their own anus. If I were an intelligent designer and wanted to design a species especially for erotic action, probably the first thing I would do is pull their genitals out of their ass. So, thank God for that, believers. Now, the cloaca works fine for egg layers, but when mammals evolved live birth, it became a problem. Eggshells are impervious to bacteria, but the young mammalian fetus is more delicate, requires better separation from the waste stream. Hence, the genitals moved out. Here we see a birth defect called persistent cloaca. Fortunately, modern medicine is able to surgically correct this defect. It's instructive, however, because it's a look at how the human reproductive system would be if we never evolved past the cloaca. Thanks, evolution. Whether you believe in a divine designer or evolution by natural selection, be glad that we ended up with external genitalia. It's pretty nice we don't have to dig through an asshole every time we're looking for the naughty bits. Now, genes are not actually puppeteers, but evolution has favored genetic combinations that encourage certain behaviors. Sociobiology is the study of the co-evolutionary interplay between genes and social behavior. For instance, why are men such dogs? It's generally believed that males are more interested in sexual variety than females. Our homosexual communities are natural laboratories for illuminating the difference. Lesbians tend to form stable family-type groups, but male homosexuals are much more promiscuous. Male homosexuals can have dozens or even hundreds of different sex partners per year. Straights generally don't get that lucky. That's not because gay men are extra promiscuous. Straights would gladly have just as many. But gay men have typically male attitudes towards sexual variety, and their sex partners have no reason to play hard to get. The researchers have experimented with many species to quantify the so-called Coolidge effect, which describes male interest in sexual variety. A bull will mate with a heifer a few times and then lose interest. But if a fresh one is introduced, he'll immediately jump her.
Gerold, could you say again, is it the Coolidge factor?
The Coolidge effect.
Effect, thanks.
So every time a new female is brought in, the bull will mount her, unless he's already had her in that, had her recently, in which case he'll ignore her. Even if she's disguised, put a bag over her head, put some perfume on her. The bull knows he's already had her, and he won't touch her again.
Why is it called the Coolidge?
I'm glad you asked that. According to legend, Calvin Coolidge was on a tour of a chicken farm, together with his wife. We work together well here, don't we? She was a little ahead of him, listening to the guide, when she suddenly interrupted. Excuse me, but that rooster, he must have had intercourse 3 times while I've been watching. Is that normal? Oh, yes, Mrs. Coolidge. She'll do that dozens of times every day. Tell that to the president when he comes by. And so when he told him, Silent Cal said, same hen over and over? Oh no, Mr. President, different one each time. Tell that to Mrs. Coolidge. So it's now forever known as the Coolidge effect. So human sociobiology is a fascinating subject, but we're just going to hit the high points. First, loss of estrus in the human female, which revolutionized human society and had far-reaching repercussions for human evolution. Next, we'll take a look at the evidence of our bodies. Sexual dimorphism, the differential sexual response of males and females, and the scale of our cock and balls. And I'm going to lay a new hypothesis on you here. It's a good application for complexity theory. I will explain why Homo sapiens sport such heavy timber, humans have the biggest dicks of any primate, and how those big dicks have co-evolved with female orgasm, mutual benefit of both sexes.
That's relative to body size.
No. In absolute scale.
Gorilla is much smaller. What about elephants? I've never known.
Primates.
Primates. Okay.
Yeah, look, we're not going to get into whales, elephants here.
You're thinking big this morning, okay?
Yeah. Leave them out of it. So here we see a couple of our nearest neighbors. These are bonobos, or pygmy chimps. So like all of our ape relatives and most other mammals, when the female is in season, she makes it very obvious. So this swelling here is a clear sign of fertility. Bonobo ovulation is not concealed. On the contrary, ovulation is heavily advertised. Now, promiscuity has very important social consequences in primate bands. None of the males can be sure whether or not a youngster is his direct offspring. So to understand what that means, consider the social behavior of Hahnemann langurs. When a new group of males are able to defeat the resident males of the Langer band, they immediately kill every youngster they can catch. Females then come into season, and then they mate with the new males. It's a pretty nasty adaptation from our perspective, but it makes a lot of sense from an evolutionary point of view. Both males and females are maximizing their genetic fitness. So band-wide promiscuity is an insurance policy by females, ensuring that none of the resident males are tempted to murder their child. But humans have evolved a very different mating game. Females are fertile about 3 days out of 28, but no one knows exactly when. That's why it's called concealed ovulation. It wasn't until the 1930s that modern medicine finally understood our fertility cycle. So it's believed by physical anthropologists that a primary selective driver for the rapid and unprecedented growth of human intelligence was social competition. Our hominid ancestors competed for status using the political tools of negotiation and bluff, alliance and trust, promises and lies. The complex landscape of the human mating game rewarded a complex human intelligence able to navigate the subtle signals of attraction and denial. Sex was the payoff for the most successful practitioners of the mating game. But one of the innovations of human society was the replacement of band-wide promiscuity with a pair bond. As the complexity of the human brain increased, so too did the length of time juveniles required before they could fend for themselves. For males to give their offspring a better chance of survival, they needed to provide resources during the dependency period. At the age of 4, human youngsters can run with a juvenile pack. But until then, males in a hunter-gatherer society maximize their genetic fitness by assisting with the nurturance and protection of their offspring. Sex is extremely interesting for humans, and concealed ovulation made it even more interesting. That was the first sexual revolution, and it was instrumental in the evolution of the human brain and the human pair bond.